Let's take ourselves back a few centuries ago, or even a few decades ago. In that world, we try to isolate and discriminate those who are different from the so-called norm. Then, let's bring ourselves back to 2017. Nowadays, we are trying to make one step forward towards equality because we believe that everyone deserves the same chances and equal opportunities, and disability should not be something that determines our future. And these efforts are also applicable to the intellectually disabled people. In the 13th century, intellectually disabled people were officially declared to be incapable of making their own decision and managing their own task. Today, only in Singapore, there are 20 special education schools for 5,500 kids who need special care. In the 18th century, the intellectually disabled people were isolated from their family, isolated from the society, and put into one big asylum. Today, NGOs and governments are trying their best to help them to better integrate into our society. So, has there been a change? No, there has not been a change. There has been a big change. And ladies and gentlemen, I ask you now, yes, there has been a big change, but is this enough? Is the world now really fair to the intellectually disabled people? More importantly, is this all that the world can do for the intellectually disabled people? I have been volunteering in one of the special education schools in Singapore, and this has totally changed my view towards this. Truth to be told, before I go to the school, work with the kids, study about the intellectual disability, and talk to the people who work for the intellectually disabled, I have never thought about this before. Then, as I grew more and became more interested towards this issue, a pang of guilt struck me. Why? Why have I never thought about this before? Although it is impossible for me to present you a one definite answer right here, I believe that the core reason is that, unlike the physically disabled people who are still able to express their inconvenience and their demand, intellectually disabled people, many of them, cannot. When some of them are even having difficulties to properly verbally communicate, how can and how will they raise voice? And this is why I'm standing right here. Like the Dr. Laura Souza who advocated for the trees, I'm here to advocate for the intellectually disabled people. Although I cannot understand everything fully, I still believe that someone should at least try to raise the voice for them. So before we dive into the main discussion, I would like to establish what is really meant by equality. There are three types of equality: formal equality, protectionist equality, and substantive equality. Formal equality is when we think that intellectually disabled people and us are literally equal. So we make the intellectually disabled people to go to the same school as we go to and compete in the same competition as we do. On the other hand, protectionist equality is when we think that the intellectually disabled people are so vulnerable that they should neither go to the work nor go to the school. Lastly, substantive equality is when we are giving help and support to them so that they can enjoy the same opportunities and same chances as we do. Theoretically speaking and morally speaking, the last one, substantive equality, is what we should be heading towards. Then, is the world now really substantively equal to all intellectually disabled people? In my opinion, there are still some problems. In many countries, we still lack the number of centers for especially the adult intellectually disabled people. Also, there are huge waiting lists for each of these centers. Despite the government support, many families with intellectually disabled people are facing financial difficulties. And worldwide, the unemployment rate of the intellectually disabled people are twice as high as the general population. But what I figured out as the biggest problem was none of this. the biggest problem was the lack of awareness. In the 21st century, we care more about human rights and equality than we did ever before. Yet, in the US, more than 1/4 of people believe that the intellectually disabled people should not have the voting rights. In my home country, South Korea, employers, by law, do not have to pay the minimum legal wage to the intellectually disabled employees. And yet, here comes the biggest shock. No one thinks this is a problem. To be more straightforward, no one is interested in this issue at all. And due to our lack of awareness, we have come to some severe misconceptions. First, some people think that the intellectual disability is always a hereditary problem, which is not true. It is more often caused by other external factors. Second, many people use the term mental retardation over intellectual disability. Mental retardation is less appropriate representation. Thirdly, from the 13th century, the misconception that the intellectually disabled people cannot make their own decision is still being continued till today. And what was most shocking to me is that some people think that intellectually disabled people do not have feelings. But in fact, I believe that they have more feelings than any of us do. You will not be able to imagine how heartbreaking it is to see those sweet kids crying when they get scolded by their teacher or when they have small trouble with their friends, just like all the other kids of their age do. You will not be able to imagine how heartwarming it is to see those sweet kids holding your hands, saying, "I will miss you" when you're leaving them. And thus, I call for greater awareness. It may seem unimportant to simply be aware, but let me tell you why by telling you a story that I heard from one teacher working in the institution for the intellectually disabled people. One day, there was one intellectually disabled boy missing. Luckily, one passerby recognized that the boy was intellectually disabled, and that person was also aware that many intellectually disabled people wear some sort of identification card. So that person, through that card, helped the boy to find his family, and the boy was able to go back to his home only within 3 hours. With more people having better understanding on the intellectual disability, the world will definitely be safer and better place for them to live, and there will be more movement and support to bring some positive changes to our world. Then how do we increase the awareness? Making a speech at TEDx or volunteering in a special education school like I did are not the only ways to do so. Simply showing support towards a purple parade or wearing blue on the World Autism Day are some other simpler ways. But there is one most important step that we very often neglect. That is, just have a minute to think about this issue. Thus, I would like to leave it to you to conclude my speech. In this way, you will be able to go back and spread this idea that truly worth spreading. And to help you with that, let me leave you with one thought-provoking question. And this is not a rhetorical question. I actually want you to have a think about this question. Going back to my presentation title, are the intellectually disabled people truly intellectually disabled, or are they just disabled intellectuals in disguise? By stereotyping them and their abilities, is it not us who are making them intellectually disabled? Now, it is your time to take the action because I believe that we envelop ourselves in this question: intellectually disabled or disabled intellectuals. Thank you.